Hello, everybody, and welcome to a new edition of the Motor Insurance Conference. I am sure that many of you were already acquainted with this event. You have attended it the previous years, and as you all know, in April, in general, we were meeting in Vienna, in the charming Bristol Hotel, to talk about the realities of the motor insurance business. This year, we will follow the trends in the insurance market and bet on technology. And hopefully it will help us to stay in touch with you and present you some very interesting things regarding the motor insurance business and in particular its future. Today, I need first to give my thanks to the partners of this conference, namely Euroins and 5plus. They have supported it in organization. And after that, what I want to do is to introduce you my colleague, Mihaela Cârcu. She's Business Development Director with Exprime. But today she will be my right hand here, actually in my right, and will help us to follow the questions and to convey them to our speakers. And first of all, will tell us what will happen in this conference and what we will do in the next almost 3 hours. Mihaela, please.
Thank you very much, Daniela. As we are counting before, this is the 9th edition of our motor insurance conference. After previous editions in Istanbul and in Vienna, we are meeting today online on Zoom and YouTube. Our conference is lively broadcast on YouTube. We are heading for 3 hours of exquisite speakers and interesting topics that are meant to give you a glimpse of the future of the motor insurance. In the next 2 hours, we'll have 4 very interesting presentations, all of them followed by a Q&A session. So please send us your questions for our speakers on the chat from Zoom or on YouTube, and we will pass them after each presentation. Then we will have a 5 minutes break, followed by 2 other very interesting presentations and an interactive panel. Now back to you, Daniela, and I'm waiting for your questions.
Well, I hope we will have many questions coming from you. In fact, we are encouraging you to ask whatever you are interested to find out from our speakers. I was thinking that right 1 year ago, when we were due to our usual Vienna meeting, it was the first lockdown in Europe, and we have seen that amazing images of empty roads. Which probably made many of us question a little bit what will happen with the motor insurance business in that very special context. Well, the context has changed much since then. It improved, okay, although it is still difficult. But what is the really very good news is that insurers have very well coped with this special moment. And motor insurance not only that still has a future, but has a very interesting future, which will be very much shaped by the changing mobility preferences of the new generations of customers, by the evolution of the technology, and all of that makes the business of motor insurance being once again a business in transition, as it was for many years already. And technology this time has probably a leading role to play. This is why just to see a little bit how things are in this moment and what are the perspectives, we will start with a presentation given by Mrs. Orsolya HEGEDUS, lead automotive sales and delivery for Swiss Re, and Damir PLEJIC, automotive and mobility consultant for Movingdots, which is also a company linked to Swiss Re on the technology side of the business. And they will talk together about the automotive and mobility insurance landscape at this moment, giving us a comprehensive view, as they said. Well, Orsi and Damir, the floor is yours, please.
Thank you very much, Daniela. So thanks for the introduction. I'm Orsi HEGEDUS. For almost 10 years, I've been working for Swiss Re, which is a leading global reinsurer. And about 5 years ago, we have set out on a journey to build our automotive and mobility solutions unit, which is a team of about 80 people dedicated to helping insurers, OEMs, as well as mobility providers and platforms to build the insurance propositions for ensuring the future of mobility or creating that future mobility insurance product. Today, I'm here with my colleague Damir from Movingdots, which is the InsurTech hub of Swiss Re, and I hand over to Damir to quickly introduce yourself.
Thank you, Orsi. Hello, Daniela. Hi, Mihaela. Excited to be here. My name is Damir PLEJIC. In Swiss Re, I work in the product development space and support insurers on their innovation journey in motor space. Mostly in the CE region and also in the Nordics. Formally, as said, I'm part of Movingdots, which is a technology company based in Germany and fully owned by Swiss Re. Actually, this is where a lot of tech solutions for motor insurers in Swiss Re originate, backed by a lot of insurance know-how coming from Swiss Re. Before joining Swiss Re, over the last 15 years, I have led business development and strategy for B2B and B2C technology businesses, out of which in the last 6 years, exclusively in insurance. So again, very excited to be here and to join this event. Back to you, Orsi.
Thanks, Damir. So today, Damir and I would like to share with you what we at Swiss Re see as main trends in the automotive and mobility insurance landscape. How can the insurance industry design solutions that address these trends together with customer needs across the whole value chain by understanding and reflecting the true risk of new mobility in underwriting and also in insurance solution design. So if we start going a little bit into the trends, which is what I am going to be focusing on in the first part of that presentation, I wanted to start with why this is such an important topic for Swiss Re. Automotive obviously was the strongest growth engine for insurance in the 20th century, but mobility in the 21st century will look very different and already is very different. Motor insurance is one of the most important line of business for insurers globally, representing more than 40% of the top line. But there are a lot of trends on the technology side, but also in terms of how mobility is consumed, that is going to change the way that mobility can be insured. So first, looking at these trends, 21st century mobility is connected, so ensures that we get a lot of data every second from roads, resulting in an abundance of data around mobility journeys. It is automated. We already see advanced driver assistance systems like an emergency brake or certain autopilot modes on the roads today, and we are moving to a fully autonomous vehicle reality with these types of cars already being tested on roads. It is also shared and multimodal, so consumers start to care more about getting from A to B only, rather than looking into what is that mean of transport or caring less and less about that mean of transport. And last but not least, it is more and more electric. So electric vehicle production is increasing with a lot of investment from car manufacturers and suppliers into that space. And already many cities have announced that they will ban internal combustion engine vehicles from entering cities in the next couple of years. Underlying this all, there is also a change in terms of moving towards digital distribution of both mobility and insurance products. Obviously, there's differences in the world about how important these trends are. So if you think about Nordics, that Damir mentioned is a market he's responsible for, electric vehicles are at the forefront of mobility, but these are trends that are affecting any European insurer already today. Both the transport modes and the inherent risks and the way mobility is consumed is changing. Some of these trends contribute to safer roads. So you can already see, for example, advanced driver assistance systems are reducing the number of accidents on the roads. Some of these trends can reduce claim severities as well. Some of them have the opposite effect by making car repairs more expensive. And we as insurers have to understand how they are affecting the underlying risks. And also how can we create relevant insurance products for this new reality of mobility. And that's what Damir is going to talk about in the second half of the presentation. What I would like to highlight here a bit is what kind of opportunities we see for insurers in general across these trends. So if I look again at these four, can you go back? Yeah, if I look again at this, in terms of connectivity, obviously this opens up the space for partnerships with OEMs or other big tech providers to harness the available data and use that data for improved underwriting and risk selection. And Damir will show you later how to. In terms of automation, obviously there's a shift in liabilities to fleet owners and OEMs away from drivers themselves. And it's also an opportunity to insure new types of risks like cyber, or insure OEMs directly instead of insuring the drivers themselves. In terms of sharing, that opens the space to new players, increasing the opportunity for partnerships and new product innovation. And last but not least, electrification opens up new risks. Battery warranty, for example, as an insurance product is something that is gaining popularity. But the whole ecosystem around electric vehicle services presents some new opportunities for insurers. So that's the technology trends. If we want to look a little bit at the end customer, and Daniela, you mentioned COVID at the beginning of this session and how that is impacting the situation. Swiss Re has looked at how do customers make a choice of what kind of insurance should they buy. And we ran a survey specifically on the effects of COVID-19, and we found that the pandemic has definitely accelerated the digitalization journey of insurance. With the new mobility reality, insurance needs to be not just fully integrated to the mobility journeys, but also has to be fully digital. In our survey, found that most of the participants said that next to price, which is still the most important deciding factor on insurance, the second most important is having access to an end-to-end digitalized journey for them, which I think is a very important point for insurers to consider when creating new insurance products. And if you stay a little bit with the customers themselves, I wanted to touch upon what else do they want from their insurers really. So what is it that an end customer wants their insurance to do for them? The first is peace of mind. So covering all relevant risks. And when you think about multimodal transport, for example, I don't want to be worried of, does it make a difference in my insurance coverage if I take the train, if I take an e-bike, or if I drive my own car? I want to be insured holistically for a mobility journey and have a peace of mind that I'm covered whichever mode of transport I use. They want fairness, so a link between risk-taking and premium paid, and for that link to be very transparent and so that they can make a choice for themselves. They want simplicity, which can be achieved by the accessibility can be easily achieved by digitalization, but that's obviously not all of it. Customers want risk advice, so understand and manage their risks comprehensively. Instead of looking at just getting paid when a claim happens, they're also looking at their insurers for advice on how they could maybe reduce their risks or make mobility decisions to keep themselves and their families safer. And last but not least, they want relevant services. So that's value-added services that go beyond risk transfer. That is different from market to market and from segment to segment. It can be stolen vehicle recovery, or it can be roadside assistance, up to getting a notification to your insurer or to some kind of service if your car is hijacked on the road in certain countries. So to summarize all of that at the first half of the presentation, we have these technology trends, and we do have these trends in the change of how mobility is consumed. And we at Swiss Re believe that there are 4 things that insurers should consider when designing the future mobility products. The first one is the change in risk pools. So there is a shift to multimodal mobility and shared mobility, but private vehicles are still the biggest market for insurers. However, the underlying risk is changing with these technology trends, and they need to take that into account. The second one is the change in business models. And in that, efficiency across the value chain is key in addressing needs for on-demand and more flexible coverages. The third one is a change in distribution channels. So next to aggregators, who are very important distribution channels, OEM and mobility providers are becoming stronger and stronger and more important, and insurers need to cater to these channels as well. And last but not least, there's a change in mobility consumption. Mobility is going to be consumed more of an on-demand and on a local basis, and insurance needs to adapt to this kind of consumption as well. So with that, I asked Damir the question, how can insurers address these needs and trends specifically?
Thank you, Orsi, for the excellent introduction into the second part, which is the one that I'm going to present in a bit more detail. So following actually the same paradigm that Orsi showed before, now let me show you how the observed trends fit into a suite of solutions that Swiss Re is providing to local partners, helping them to accelerate on digitalizing their innovation journey in motor. Here's a quick overview of the expanding suite of solutions in Swiss Re. As you can see, this is the same risk management paradigm that Orsi talked about. And these solutions are the result of both internal development. So solutions like ColorEye Telematics is a internal developed solution in Swiss Re and in Movingdots, or it is a result of a cooperation like EIRAS Risk Score is developed hand in hand with BMW. In the interest of time, I'm going to focus today on those two examples, but there, as you can see, there are much more to it for some other opportunity to share. As we could see in the last year, the telematics propositions became more prominent during the pandemic. We have started several projects in this space. Swiss Re proposition is a bit different from pure technology companies. There is an expanding and maturing infrastructure that has been proved on multiple markets and that we source to our partners. But on top of that, Swiss Re is providing our scoring and actuarial support for the local implementation of the product, go-to-market strategy, and also a reinsurance angle. Also in the past, telematics technology was used primarily for the post-trip analysis as the way to understand risk. Now we are algorithmically learning from the data collected and automatically and individually deploy a coaching program in order to prevent risk from happening, rather than just acting afterwards. So at the moment, we have more than 30 live projects running globally. As one of the observed trends, we see that telematics is becoming more and more an integral part of this landscape in insurance main business line. So in the past, it was a bit separated, sit in the innovation department or just in motor space. And now it has been integrated with various other components to provide more value to both insurers and end customers. Telematics is quickly becoming a piece of the larger puzzle. So now we have programs that combine telematics with EIRAS Risk Score, which is something that I'm going to talk a bit about later. programs with claims-related functionalities, and then the program that we just started with the global mobility provider to understand how risky are drivers that you as a passenger that you don't know, and whether you would like to share driving with such a driver or not. Last but not the least, we had started several projects with car manufacturers last year. They're providing services based on data that car manufacturer is collecting with new vehicles, a model that will have more traction in the future. Yeah, let me share a couple of words on something that I mentioned, which is HEGEDUS risk score. So as the telematics solution are assessing ways people drive, providing models such as pay as you drive or pay how you drive, the HEGEDUS risk score is addressing the vehicle-related safety, enabling also pay what you drive. Basically, the solution is connecting numerous vehicle safety systems with insurance matrix. It does that through a deep analysis, simulations, and situational testing. It's an extremely complex space with a huge variety of models, makes, and generations of safety systems with a different impact on car safety. The solution has developed in partnership with car manufacturers and other automotive companies. On the right-hand side, you can see the example of an analysis we did for our client in the CE region. Two things are very prominent. The HEGEDUS risk score is a very strong predictor of risk because insurance model without the HEGEDUS component either underestimate the ability of cars to prevent risk or overestimate it for the older models. The other learning is that there is a huge difference in car safety in a typical portfolio in a CE market. New cars are just hitting the roads packed with the most advanced and modern systems, while at the same time the average age of the car is still 10 years or more, or closer to 15 years on some markets. This is why the delta between those two tiers of cars, or two extremes, is very large at the moment. And that's why it is important to start assessing this vehicle safety component now, and in order to harvest the knowledge in following years. Especially knowing that next year, many of these systems are becoming mandatory in cars that will start coming from the production lines in Europe. So it is clear that there is a fundamental shift in the risk assessment, with vehicles taking more and more space. Still, we are good 30 years ahead of time when we expect the cars will be fully autonomous. And in the meantime, we would have to combine both individual driving safety and the vehicle-related score together for the comprehensive picture. We have both necessary components in our hands. So feel free to reach out in case if you would like to discuss this approach and know more about the solutions. Which brings us to the end of today's presentation, basically what we wanted to convey. So thanks a lot for your attention, and if there are already any questions, we'll be happy to take it.
Well, thank you very much for the presentation. I think it summarizes very well a couple of truths that we are confronted with every day. I have a first question, and it comes to me from a similar experience related to property insurance. But now I'm thinking like this: car safety technologies have significantly reduced the risk associated with driving a car on the road. No? And for many, it could seem that insurance becomes less relevant in this context. Is it right? Can we speak at least about a category of cars for which maybe you wouldn't need so much insurance?
It's a very good question, and that is something that we asked us a couple of years ago when we did a study together with a technology provider here to look into what does automation mean for the future of insurance. And first of all, what we found is that full automation will come down the road, and until that happens, motor insurance will still be very relevant, and in some parts of the world more so than in others. You know, some of these trends are accelerated in certain parts of the world. What we definitely see is there's a shift of liability. So the products and the risks can be different, but there could be additional risks like cyber, for example, as mentioned in the presentation. I think the other thing that we see is on that road with new and new ADAS features being built into vehicles, the risk is reduced, but insurers need to understand between different make model versions, and even in the same version of the car, you can have different elective equipment that you have, and they have different effects on the risk itself. So as Damir explained in ADAS risk score proposition, the idea is to be able to reflect that and also motivate people to take that technology by offering them tailored insurance products. So we definitely don't think that insurance will become irrelevant, hoping that risk is going to decrease. I think it's in all of our interests to live in a world where we don't see more than 1 million of people dying on the roads each and every year. So that's what we're working towards. But I think it's more of a shift and maybe different types of products that can be tied to mobility that down the road in the long term.
Thank you. What you just said makes me ask something else. You know, until now, motor insurance products, at least the basic ones, were considered somehow quasi-standardized with a very low range of variation between the coverages offered into the policies, pricing terms, etc., etc. What you have just said brings me to the idea that maybe we will see more personalized motor insurance product, because each car, depending on the technical devices it has, will trigger another set of conditions and maybe another type of pricing.
I think in terms of pricing, etc., we definitely see that trend with usage-based insurance, right? So pay as you drive, pay how you drive models are already something that are on the market, and that is personalized. What we are proposing with ADAS risk score, that's also personalized. We are also looking into how do the driver and the vehicle themselves interact. But one thing is pricing, and I think the other is coverage. So whenever we talk about, is a victim going to get compensated for a claim? The answer is yes, the insurers are there for that, and we need to make sure that that is still a clear and standardized process for the victims to get compensated quickly and in a seamless way, like our liability regimes are today. And I think that is an important distinction to make between pricing and then compensating for losses.
Orsi, if I can add to your message. Yeah, I mean, I think that the importance of insurers is actually, insurers are getting importance with this new machine-human interaction. So not everything is rosy with the technology. We could see news that people were over-relying to some systems that are called autopilot or similar. We could see videos on YouTube with people, driving without, with no hands on the wheel, believing that the car is already capable of driving by itself. And all of this is the result of a couple of things happening at the same time. First and foremost, it follows the rapid development in the technology space, and car manufacturers or even distributors are not educating people what to expect from such systems. And fairly speaking, some of those systems are hard to demonstrate, so no one will start driving towards the wall just to demonstrate that the car will stop. So all of that results in basically drivers do not know enough about those safety systems, and since the insurers is the one that is taking the risk, insurer can know what is fitted to each and every individual car and can educate drivers based on that. So I think that there is a fairly large ground where insurers are going to play in the future.
Yeah, and I think also, and you can correct me, we are ahead to quite a number of years of transition, let's say, because at least in our region, as you said in your presentation, the average fleet age is higher and higher. In fact, it has increased during the last years. So there will be coexisting in the market in the same time, very old cars, newer cars, but not the latest modern equipment that's on them, and a number quite small of very modern cars. Is it, where is the I don't know, the right balance between all those situations? How should they be approached somehow to satisfy everybody? Is it possible to satisfy everybody?
Yeah, I mean, if I can take this one, I think there is a fair chance for insurers to satisfy various segments of customers. It is obvious that not all segments can be satisfied with the same approach, and this is what is happening in other industries. So we have vast differences in terms of how people are moving, not only to mention how they are owning a car and insuring a car. So just from the age point of view, there are huge differences between elderly citizens that don't drive much and the new young drivers that exhibit different behavior. There are differences between family members and those that are business owners. So there are solutions that will be tailored for different segments. And when the HEGEDUS is mentioned, so as I said, next year and in the following years, more and more cars will be coming with the safety systems fitted. So knowing that and having the insights in how these safety systems are helping insurers in reducing the frequency and even the severity of claims, some insurers are building products in such a way to attract the owners of the new cars that have the higher premium and are less prone to risk to increase their gross written premium. So this is one of the strategies that can be applied with the new cars, even though the penetration of these new cars in the region is not that high. Mm-hmm. So this is one of the examples.
Yeah, thank you. I think Mihaela has some questions also from our public.
Yes, we have one question from Susan Page. Is regulation in EU allowing at the moment telematics-based products, and we are referring here to e-privacy directive, GDPR?
Yeah, this is a good question. Of course, we all have to adhere to the GDPR, and our solution is fully in line. The question of privacy is always on the table because traditionally insurers are not those that have high trust with the customers. And the relevancy of this question is high if the value proposition based on telematics is not clear enough for the end users. Once there is a clear benefit for end users to use telematics first, for instance, to share their location, for the road assistance, so that they don't have to explain that they are somewhere in the woods and they have the car that needs attention, or they could, in the case of accident, they could use the emergency call and have other connected solutions based on the data that they share. Then the questions of privacy are less asked. So this is always a good balance, but from the legal point of view, of course, it's allowed, and we are fully in line with the GDPR regulation.
Okay, thank you.
Well, it was also quite large discussions about the propriety on the data collected by the inbuilt systems in the cars. I'm not aware what are the latest developments in this direction. Was it cleared in the end? Who's the owner of the data collected by the inbuilt systems in the car?
That is a very good question. So in terms of directive, right, in principle, every person who generates that data should be the owner of their data. So GDPR has rules and responsibilities whenever it comes to data handling, right? And the users themselves can decide if they want to share that data with a third party like an insurance company, or if they want that if they retrieve their consent, there has to be very clear rules, regulations in terms of how that data has to be purged, for example. So what Damir said is GDPR is a set of regulations, and then you can actually design solutions around usage-based insurance and telematics that adhere to this. But one of the guiding principles is it has to be very clear for the driver that is monitored how their data is used, by whom is it used, and what kind of rights do they have around that data, and how they can retrieve their consent and get the data that they have generated if they want to. So those are all very important points.
Yeah, right. Mihaela, I think you.
Yes, we have another question coming from YouTube. Digitalization can be a challenge. Quantity of the data isn't the same as quality of the data. What practices are envisioned to improve quality of analytical data in order to improve customer experience?
Well, do we have an answer for that?
I'm not completely, I'm not positive what is the background of the question. I mean, technically speaking, we are always working on the quality of data collected, and the industry as such, and if we are looking just at the telematics part of our solution, it has advanced a lot in the last couple of years. With the analysis and a lot of data filtering and clearing house in the backend, we can be pretty sure that the data and insights that are built on data are a good reflection of the risk exposure, for instance, in telematics. But there is always a place to add additional set of data. So, for instance, in risk management, we are now looking into weather data to understand how the exposure to risk is connected with the conditions on the road, or how the traffic congestion might affect the risk assessment and things like that. So there are always opportunities to add more data points and to make it a bit more complicated, but fairer and more tangible for the end user.
Oh, thank you. Well, I have just received another question on the chat from Mr. Klime Popovski, and he is asking like this: does road infrastructure can support the use of telematics in the CE, in the Central and Southeastern Europe, or is it irrelevant if you think that the question is valid? Or is it irrelevant? I think the last words were for me. So is the road infrastructure adapted enough to allow use of telematics?
I think it is. I think it is. We have seen examples in Slovenia, in Poland, in Croatia, and elsewhere, where there are better or successful or less successful projects deployed. But I think the telematics as such does not require a lot of infrastructure. What you might be referring to is the state of which roads are. There might be more potholes and things like that. So in the analytical part of our solution, we take this into account and, as I said, filter out the noise in data to support this, to support the insights that are built on data on many markets that we work with. So, for instance, in Brazil, we have comparable, in some cities, comparable infrastructure, and we proved that the telematics infrastructure can work well.
Okay, thank you. I think we are close to the end of our Q&A session. I would ask a last question. It's more related to the public expectations. We'll know it at this moment is this rapid development of technology, and everybody is looking at it, expecting maybe some miracles in this respect. And obviously customers which became very acquainted with online services, especially in this year, have moved their expectations toward the standard that is provided by the, I don't know, booking companies, ticketing companies, whatever. Are we there in insurance? Can we hope to be 2 clicks away from buying a product? Very simple, very easy. Especially in motor.
That is definitely the hope of getting to that level, right? And when I mentioned that some OEMs and mobility providers are becoming very important in the distribution, it also means that insurer has to feed in with insurance products seamlessly into that mobility ecosystem itself, right? So it has to be an on-demand experience that can be, buying insurance can be part of taking a ride in a ride-sharing app, for example. And we have to cater for that as insurers. But we also seen that digitalization is accelerating. There are more and more products that are available end-to-end digitally. And that is definitely the challenge to all the insurers who are not doing that at the moment to try to get to that level. Because we see that it can be done, right? There are some very good examples. Maybe Damir, you want to add something specifically for the region itself?
Yeah, I mean, this is a long journey. Insurers that I've worked with in the region are going through the change of the core insurance program to support such initiatives and to support such digital products. I've seen it across the region, and those are the projects that are taking a lot of internal resources and time, but it's a necessary step to support, as Orsi said, end-to-end digital journey for the products, even recreation of the existing products or revamping the existing products to support this digital journey starting and ending online. So as a reinsurer, as a solution provider, we are here to help local insurers along that journey with the solutions and also the experience and the insurance know-how that is in the house.
Well, I didn't lie. I was sincere when I said it's my last questions, but it seems that our public is greedy, and we have one more. Please, Mihaela.
Yes, we have another question from Mr. Madalin ROSU. What should be the future best solution for the customer in regards to telematics? Mobile app or classic?
Classic OBD. It's a very good question, right? And the answer is it depends. What we have seen is that the method of data collection shouldn't be the goal of a telematics proposition. We should always start with identifying who is the customer, what is the value add for them, why do we want to use telematics or data, and what data do we need to achieve that mean or that service that we want to offer. And based on that, there are different offerings that can coexist as well. There are certain segments where it makes much more sense to use an app-based telematics offering because it's easy to install, it's efficient, but sometimes that's not enough. There are certain services that you cannot offer with just an app only, and you would need some kind of hardware if you want to offer certain services around car health check, for example. You would need to understand data coming from the vehicle through an OBD device, for example. Some of the value-added services around claims, for example, can only be provided if you have some kind of a fixed hardware in the vehicle itself and cannot be done by an app-only solution. So what I would turn around that question and just ask, you know, what is the customer and what is the customer need, and then we will find the solution, the right technology for that value proposition.
Exactly, and if I can add to that, Orsi, there is also a trend of using data collected by third parties. So, namely, more and more cars are being connected, and car manufacturers are collecting data that insurers are using to underwrite and provide additional services. In some other cases, so for the heavy-duty truck fleets, fleet management company is the one that is collecting data and sharing with the insurance company to understand the risk exposure, and the fleet management company is still providing services that are beyond insurance. So together they are providing a comprehensive insurance. So it's not only the dilemma OBD versus black box or versus smartphone. There are, you know, plethora of different solutions that can be applied and that can fit well to each and every use case, that, like Orsi said.
Thank you very much. That being said, thank you very much, Orsi and Damir. We hope to see you again some other time in another event. Meanwhile, for all our guests, the presentations that will be hosted by this conference today will be also uploaded on the website of our conference starting tomorrow, so you can revisit them, as well as the answers given by our speakers, because the YouTube recording will remain online and will be accessible at any time. Thank you very much once again. At this point, we will continue on the technology path, let's say, and that leads us to our next speaker, who is Mr. Marijan MUMDZIEV. He's the CEO of Amodo, the Croatian technology solutions provider, which is already for a long time not only Croatian, but a global company, I could say, with a huge experience. And Marijan will talk today about the customer engagement as a critical success factor in UB propositions. Marijan, please, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Daniela. Thank you for this kind introduction. I think the discussion that was run just before my presentation was the best possible introduction I could have gotten. I see the audience is quite familiar with the telematics technology, with usage-based insurance products. There were some great questions asked. So having that said, I think my presentation is definitely going to cover some of the questions that have been discussed. And I truly hope to bring value to the conference by covering my part on the customer engagement today. So very briefly on Amodo. Amodo is a technology vendor. We provide insurance telematics solution. We have meanwhile launched quite a few initiatives on almost all continents globally. And we are behind some of the most successful usage-based insurance products globally. We work with a number of prestigious global insurance companies, but also insurance brokers that are continually looking for ways how to differentiate on the market, and with innovative product get a good traction on customer acquisition side. So we see a lot of new spin-offs, digital brokers such as Lemonade, Root Insurance, and similar that are looking for innovative go-to-market strategy, and then they leverage on Amodo technology amongst others. As mentioned, Meanwhile, we have collected a lot of data from different markets. We are mostly present in the European and Asian market, and this is something that we definitely had a great opportunity to leverage so as to build very advanced risk models based on the collected data. So let me try to take a little bit different approach to the whole discussion by saying that especially driven by the circumstances and the pandemic of 2020, the consumers are quickly shifting to digital channels. And so anyone who is capable of and who can offer their products or services through the digital channel is currently doing so. And so does the insurance wants to move to digital channels. There is a recent study that was conducted by Accenture that clearly proves this trend and quantifies it, where we can see the significant improvement in penetration of the digital channels in the lives of insurance consumers. So another indication that we need to start thinking more and more as an insurance companies, how to engage with the customers through the mobile digital channels, what are the specifics of the mobile digital channels, and how to go about it, how to make it a successful proposition. We touched upon in the previous discussions about the data collection, which is definitely an important part. However, not a sufficient one if the insurance company clearly, and the assumption is that they do, want to have a good return on investment and successful usage-based insurance projects. The uniqueness of mobile digital channel, unlike any other channel that was used by the insurance industry so far, is that it gives us access to behavioral data of the consumer. And this behavioral data can be used to boost number of different business aspects and to improve overall insurance business. The first one, the one that we very frequently discuss about, is new ways how to price the risk, new ways how to create product, innovate on a business model level. And this is where we have discussion about usage-based insurance products, pay how you drive, pay as you drive, pay-per-mile, and so pay-per-use, and all the usage-based insurance products that are being based on the usage/behavioral data. The same behavioral data is definitely as valuable as it is for risk pricing, valuable for the proper customer profiling and segmentation with the purpose of promotion activities and cross-sell of other insurance products through the same digital channel. And this is something we have enabled for a number of our customers, and in that way boosted the return on investment, where they were able to achieve the return on investment on the usage-based insurance even within the first 9 months when properly executed. What is also something, an important aspect to the whole proposition, to the whole technology, is risk prevention. Risk prevention, because now we can finally make personalized approaches to the customers by understanding their behavior, first of all, by understanding their risk exposure, second of all, and then by applying technology to this data, to this know-how, so as to change their behavior with the purpose to reduce risk and ultimately claims. Last but not least, the technology allows for improved claim handling process and definitely a significant improvement in first notification of loss. Now, these are 4 main categories that are being disrupted today based on behavioral data. And as I said, behavioral data is something really unique for mobile digital channels. And how this can be further divided is that the left side of this quadrant, the digital promotion of the products, creation of the new products, is something that definitely boosts the top line of the insurance business by giving them necessary differentiation on the market and by helping them to reach out to the audience, especially to the new generation, but now even to the old, given the pandemic, through the digital channels. And we see our customers benefit from the revenue growth based on distribution through this digital channel. The right side, where we are talking about risk prevention with the purpose to reduce the claims and ethanol improvement, as well as improvement in operational processes for handling the claim, is something that contributes to the improvement of the bottom line. So amongst our customer base, we have seen improvement of claim anywhere between 15 to 22, 23%, depending on number of different product-related factors, communication, self-selection, and so on. Generally, this is the range of the claim ratio and claim total size, the improvement that we have seen amongst the customer base using the smartphone-based insurance telematics. Now, something we have touched upon already in our discussion is the need for the data. And when it comes to risk pricing and automated crash detection and ethanol improvement, this is an aspect of the business where we need the customer data, and we can get it. We can get it from a smartphone, or in some cases, we can get it directly from the cars, and so on. From the aftermarket telematics devices, if that being the situation, and so on. But if we are talking about monetization of the customer through cross-selling of additional products and risk prevention with the purpose to reduce the claim, this is the part of the equation where we must have customer engagement. And this is also a significant contribution to the overall success of the usage-based insurance product, which is why now, with the introduction of the digital mobile channel, the customer engagement becomes such a heavily discussed topic in the insurance business. Why are the engaged customers important for the insurance business and for the UBI? First of all, engaged customers are significantly more loyal. And this has been a pain point for some of the P&C products in the insurance portfolio since years. And we all know the numbers and where they range. So what I'm sharing now with you is an extract of one of our projects we are running. We analyzed the customers that have not been exposed to Amodo customer engagement technology and compare them with those that have been exposed with the customer engagement technology. Just to learn that customers that are not exposed to customer engagement program enabled through the technology tend to churn significantly in the first year. So after a period of 1 year, we can see a churn of users even up to 50%, which is definitely a significant churn that makes it much more difficult to get a return on investment on usage-based insurance programs than if it wouldn't be such, if we wouldn't have such a churn. Now, for those users that have been exposed to a structured engagement program, optimized by Amodo technology, we have seen in the data significantly lower churn. So after a period of 1 year, around 9% of users have churned from the platform. Still, we are not talking about the policy churn, meaning policy churn was even lower than 9%. So we see a significant contribution of the structured customer engagement program to customer loyalty. And we all know how expensive is customer acquisition in the motor insurance in particular. And if we don't have a proper level of retention, return on investment is in many cases difficult to impossible to achieve. So user retention driven and enabled by customer engagement is a key success factor for a successful usage-based insurance program. Very plainly put, with one of our projects, we have observed less than 2% a yearly churn on the premiums. So for that reason, I think we can compare, if we compare it with the traditional market numbers in the motor insurance portfolio, this is a significant and very strong improvement on the customer loyalty. Now, besides, through the structured customer engagement approach, besides having loyal customers, those customers that stay and that are engaged through these structured programs also buy more, also spend more. So the insurance company share of wallet amongst this customer base is significantly higher. And to turn to numbers, again, comparing engaged users versus non-engaged users, we see that in the engagement user customer segment, the conversion to one or more insurance products is at the level of 74.8%. Now, amongst non-engaged users, we have seen a conversion at 29%. So a significant difference. and only in this particular case driven by the engagement, by the structured engagement program, trying to find and select and engage the user base that the insurance company has on a mobile digital channel. These are in most cases, these are very new metrics, and it's a very new in the insurance world, simply because insurance world just got recently introduced to a mobile digital channel. And we all know the experiences from the past where the digital was not that dominating over the other distribution manners. But now, when it becomes a necessity for any business, let alone insurance, that can easily be distributed through the digital channels, for a big portion of the P&C products, this becomes engagement versus engagement of customers becomes a detrimental for the program success. Besides buying more, the engaged customers are also claiming less. So overall, if we want to build, if the insurance company wants to build a profitable customer base, they definitely should strive to switch to digital channels and leverage on the available technology today, such as the one Amodo provides. And in a study we have published already a couple of years ago, we have found a very strong direct correlation between the level of engagement and risk exposure and risk score change. So for those customers that have been very or frequently engaged with the system, we were able to change their behavior to a more significant extent by 35% measured in a risk score. Whereas for those customers that haven't been really engaged with the system, the capability to change their behavior diminishes, is significantly lower. So on the cost side, on the claim side, and overall on the profitability side, engagement plays role in all of those aspects. Now, what is publicly available information and is the one that the reference from Amodo and AIG, where we worked with AIG for a number of years now, and for their customer base, the overall total claim reduction achieved within the first 12 months was 15%. So clearly we are dealing with a very different with a very different channel to the ones that we have been exposed in the insurance business than before, and the whole dynamic and business values behind the digital channels are different, to a benefit of an insurance company. Also for use in Brazil, we managed to reduce, through the structured customer engagement program, the risk of bodily injuries by 60%. So a very important question that is being posed automatically through the previous statements is how to engage customers through the digital channel. And it pretty much comes down to two things. Value proposition, this is something we cannot run away from. And in many cases, it is under full control of the insurance company, because the insurance company needs to know what kind of a product and how to structure the product for the local market. And this plays a very important role, as one can imagine. The second one, equally important, which is surprising and potentially not so intuitive, is the structured customer engagement program enabled by the proper choice of technology. Now, what I'm sharing here is another set of data. This is a comparison of two projects, usage-based insurance projects, with the same technology, but with two different value propositions, where the user retention differentiates significantly to the benefit of the orange project and not so much to the benefit of the blue indicated here project, where we have seen that the vast of the users have left the program after 1 year. And this is driven by the value propositions that are not that evolved or suitable for the market. And a simple value proposition, just to convey the message, that we have seen on the market can be in exchange for 12 months of driving data, the insurance company is willing to give a 1% discount on an add-on for young drivers. Now, it is really important to have a proper balance between the expected effort of the consumer as well as the benefit that the insurance company gives them through the value proposition. It doesn't have to be only discount, it can be quality of service, access to additional service, number of different aspects are forming value proposition. But I just want to stress out that value proposition plays one important aspect of the success of the usage-based insurance program. Now, when we apply customer engagement to both of these cases, we see a significant improvement in the user retention in both cases. Nonetheless, what can also be deducted from the data is that value proposition and customer engagement are the ones ultimately enabling a success of the usage-based insurance program. Customer engagement, since the value proposition is something that, of course, we help every insurance company to develop based on our vast experience we have built in the past. Nonetheless, how the customer engagement programs are being built. There are three main components: communication, gamification, and rewards. And a combination of these three components is what enables ultimately successful and efficient customer engagement program. Not to run into full detail on the capability of Amodo platform, but this is the part where with the technology, the locally relevant content can be created and distributed to the users, most usually, if not exclusively, through the smartphone application. The communication is also planned in a structured manners and executed on a segment based amongst the users of the smartphone insurance proposition. And ultimately, of course, everything requires a very disciplined tracking and reporting, which is available on Amodo platform. And now, quickly skimming through the number of different functionalities Amodo offers, starting from a typical gamification mechanics such as loyalty points, targeted bumper stickers and achievements, theme-based competitions and challenges, reward contests, scratchers. There are a plethora of gamification mechanics available on our platform that we leverage so as to plan in a structured manners, short-term, mid-term, and long-term engagement. So it's a really dedicated and committed approach to customer engagement that enables ultimately the results I have shared. Thank you so much for your attention.
Thank you very much, Marijan. It's quite interesting, and it seems to me that you are somehow, this technology is somehow inviting customers to join a club of customers with their insurers, somehow in a long-term cooperation. Is it true? Would it be defined like this?
Well, it definitely is about building a community. It's definitely about leveraging the benefits of having a community that digital insurance companies should leverage on. And this is something that companies such as Lemonade are sharing frequently with us. The mere question and simple question is going to the digital channel is part of the insurance strategy or not? But if it is, then you're absolutely right, Daniela. This is a very important aspect to it.
I think Mihaela has a question here prepared from our guests.
We have a question for you. I know that you gave us some figures during your presentation, but Susan Page asks if you can offer us some figures regarding the decrease of claims for engaged clients.
Most certainly. This is what I try to do in presentation, and part of this presentation is going to be available after the conference as well. Amongst our customer base, we have seen a total claims reduction between 15 and 22% approximately. So this is the range in which we find the reduction of claims for the engaged user base.
Thank you.
I would come back to a question that I also have asked Damir before. So with safer cars, safety technologies developing from one day to the other, do insurers need to really become, let's say, partners of their clients instead of just covering for financial losses after an event? So do they have a relationship going hand in hand day by day, let's say, servicing permanently?
In short, yes. Long answer would be it's a good thing that we have enough time to achieve that goal. So we have been talking about connected cars technology previously. This is something Amodo is engaged with as well. We have the technology capability today to collect data directly from BMW vehicles, Daimler vehicles, and Ford vehicles. And one thing that we have observed through that experience, but also other experiences in that area as well, is that the whole industry is far from being standardized. And this is an important barrier to adoption of these technologies amongst insurance, but also other industries. And keeping in mind the carpool age, average carpool age in the Central Eastern Europe, this time until this becomes a relevant and present concern is some years ahead of us. So definitely something that will come, definitely something we see relevant on a long term. Short to mid, this is a time to prepare.
Well, this brings me to another question that I would like to ask you. Your experience at Amodo is covering very many geographies, and I'm sure that in this way is meeting many cultures, different types of approaches and customers. From your experience, is there a difference in our area, let's say, between the willingness of drivers to let insurers monitor their driving styles just to benefit from the entire package of the UB offering, or they're rather reluctant and
this is okay. Short answer: nobody's happy to let anyone monitor anything they do. But
no big surprises here.
Exactly. But I will repeat maybe what Damir said before. Value proposition is the one giving an answer to that, because we still, all of us here today on this conference, we share so much information with number of companies every day. And basic principles that are applicable in the digital industry are also valid for the insurance industry as well. So if the value proposition is good, end users have no issues to share their data whatsoever. We have launched 4 UBI programs in the CE region, and this rule is valid for the CE region as well.
Last from my side, my last question for you is: would you define the usage-based insurance products like being a step further in the client-centric approach from insurers? Because we have talked about putting the clients in the center of the attention for years, for many years now. But usually it was more about the relation with the client, the CRM systems, etc., than about the product itself, the way it interacts with the client. Now, personalizing so much.
Absolutely yes. So what we have seen in the numbers is that during the lockdown times, which are still ongoing, 1/3 of the drivers drive less. 2/3 of drivers drive more. Ultimately, because of 1/3 of drivers are missing from the streets, this reduces the traffic significantly, and ultimately insurance companies have experienced improvement in the combined ratio, to say the least. However, how the insurance companies decided to approach this situation is somewhat short-term sighted, because it's not necessarily a benefit for good customers, neither it is for insurance companies. An example would be a Hook Coburg that announced that they will distribute some of the winnings that they have achieved through pandemic last year to the customer base. But the way how this distribution is done is pretty flat. And with behavior-driven technology, with the insurance telematics, with the smartphone telematics programs, this attribution of benefits can be done in much more personalized way. And this is where we are becoming truly centralized, customer-centric organizations enabled by the modern technology.
Thank you very much. Are there any other questions? I understand not. Thank you very much, Marijan. I hope to see you again, as all our other speakers today. At this moment, I am happy to say that it's a rare situation. We are right on time, according to the schedule. This is not happening very often in a conference. And we are going to our next speaker, who is Mr. Mariusz WICHTOWSKI from the Polish Motor Insurance Bureau. In fact, president of the Polish Motor Insurance Bureau and a very old friend of Xprim. And he will talk a little bit with us about the trends that have developed in motor insurance in this period, but that will most probably last long term and many years after the end of the pandemic and the special situation we are in at this point. Mariusz, what we'll see in the future, considering the trends that have emerged this year and probably will be together with us in the future?
Hello, Daniela. It's a pleasure to see you on the screen.
Oh.
I'm very glad to travel a bit online. Even I'm dreaming to travel in the real life, but I'm closed as almost everybody in Europe, not only in Europe. But this virtual life gives us the opportunity to meet from time to time. So once again, hello, hello, hello from sunny Warsaw. And my promise is to present no figures, no IT fireworks. I will just share my feelings, my reflections with you regarding the topic. It was mentioned by Daniela. And following your question, Daniela, I would like to know really what will happen in the nearest future. And if you allow, ladies and gentlemen, I will switch on my presentation now. Could you see it at this moment?
Yes.
Yes,
okay.
Probably you can. So long-lasting trends, that's a very good question. The first, it would be very interesting to answer the question, what means the long-lasting trend? Generally, the question, because we are speaking when we are speaking about the motor business, we know that this kind of product exists for more than 100 years, at least in Europe, just now. And usually we are speaking about what will happen in the future, what will be impact on the insurance industry, on the clients, what will be the impact on the prices. And in fact, all our predictions are wrong, always are wrong. So the question in our days is, are we able to predict what will happen in 1 year, in 2 years, or maybe in 5 years? Somebody who's running the business, insurance business, should only not predict, but calculate the potential results in the future, the costs, and finally, the shareholders would like to have some profits. And this is the reason they invest the money in this business. So the first question was, what means the long-lasting trend? But generally, the another question is, what type of the trend? What is interesting for the industry? We should be honest here in this circle. We are not talking about the consumer rights. We are talking about the industry. Almost everybody represents the industry, insurance companies, claims adjusters, claim settlement companies, some institutions, they are working on the insurance markets. And who represents the clients here today? Maybe there are some representatives, but generally we are always discussing among us. It means the people, they are usually long working in the insurance industry. So what type of the trends are really interesting for us? The figures, the money, the customer satisfaction? Who knows what is the most important from our perspective? The best one would be to share or combine all of them together. And theoretically, this is possible. And I tried in the past during the seminars organized by Exprim to present some possibilities how to reach this goal, because the satisfied client means also better results for the insurance company. But the reality is rather sad, and we are still fighting among us and from time to time against the clients and injured persons. So we must answer the question, what means the trend? The next one, this is the reflection. What is the relation between the facts and the trends? Is it really that thinking about the trends we base always on the facts? How big impact they have, the facts have on a trends or our predictions? How much we are dreaming, we are creating some ideas without respecting the facts, what should be the basis for any deliberation in this matter. Let's speak about the facts at the beginning. So, on this chart, you see some facts. They could be positive for the insurance industry. Let's speak about the interest of the industry on the business. Less accidents. I guess that in every country, at least in Europe, it's exactly the same. There is the lower level of the accidents. There is less fatalities, less injured persons, and there is lower transported traffic. According, at least our experiences from the Polish Bureau, not only from the Polish market, we see there is a substantial decrease on different areas between 15 up to 30%. For sure, this should have the serious impact on an industry. But what else? We have also lower number of the reported claims. Excellent, excellent. Less reported claims, less fatalities, less injured persons. This should be a good message for the insurers. But another questions are we really paying less claims? Are we really create lower reserves than before? What does it mean? What is the relation between the number of the reported claims, lower level of the injured person, fatalities, and the reserves? Unfortunately, in my opinion, the expectations of the injured persons, claimants, are higher and higher. Not always there is a direct impact of the lower level of the reported claims on the reserves and paid claims in the reality. At least from our market, we see that there is a small impact on the financial results of the industry, but it's not significant, not at all. The next group of the facts, what we achieved last year. As we remember, in the majority of the European countries, we started to transfer our activities from the head offices or from the offices to the home offices. And we are really successful. This transition was rather smooth and gave us a lot of flexibility, and also the flexibility for the employees of our companies and organizations. That's flexibility of the working time, flexibility of, at least in many decisions, the employees received more power, more possibilities to take the decision, because they are not every day with the bosses. We are working from the virtual offices, and the impact on the customer service was not so bad, what we can observe, at least from our market. This, what happened last year, starting from March, is a real evidence that we can change the way of our operations if we are forced. And what was done, it wouldn't be imaginable in the normal life. That's during many conversations regarding the organization of the work in different companies, bureaus, guarantee funds, I always heard that it's very important that everybody should come every day to the office, to be controlled, to work in a group, to achieve the goal. Because if the people will stay at home, this will have a negative impact on their work. In some companies, this home office was treated as a kind of benefit for the best employees. And we see almost all industry in Poland is still working from the virtual offices. It means from the home offices. It means it works. So we will see what will happen in the future. And back to my reflection I had mentioned before. Is there any relation between the trends and facts? The facts I have mentioned, some facts they are important from my perspective. And let's see what kind of the trends we can expect, we can create maybe. So the first one, should we expect the cost reduction? This is the question, what type of costs we have in mind? Fixed cost, so the cost of the employees, cost of the offices, but for sure we need to invest the money in IT and artificial intelligence, what is at this moment very important for the insurance industry. It is not very cheap. If you want to keep this or partly this system of the cooperation, and at least from the boards of many insurance companies, we can hear that there is no way back in 100%. It's necessary to use this experience we have now with the virtual offices. So this means we need to invest a lot of money in IT systems, and we need to invest the money in trainings of the staff, and we need also to invest a lot of money in customer service, what is very important. The next one, this is the remote control. How to control the people that are not in the head office of the company or branch office. How to remote them, and how to control them. And what was impossible to imagine in the nearest past is the reality nowadays. And there is no objections in this area. It works because it's very easy to check, having good systems in the companies, what the people are really doing in the real time. Every moment we can see what they are doing and if they achieve the goals or not. As I have mentioned before, this type of the activity, this platform of the activity gives us a lot of flexibilities, and we save the time as well. Everybody probably remembers how much time we spent on different meetings. They were unnecessary in generally speaking. And of course, there are many meetings online as well, but they are not so long as we had before, because it's impossible to spend so much time sitting in front of the screen. And another trend, could we expect the stable number of the claims? We noted in the nearest past, in the last 12 months, a lower level of the claims, injuries, fatalities, and so on. But could we expect this will be the trend in the nearest future? Could we expect that we will have a lower level of the paid and reserved claims, stable level of the variable costs, and higher return on equity? What is especially interested for the shareholders. So regarding the return on equity, I will not develop this topic, but please remember that the lower traffic is not on a volatile basis. There are so many limitations, the lockdowns in many countries, that the people, for example, in Netherlands, in winter there was 9 o'clock. Now at 10 o'clock they must be home, and generally it's not allowed to travel. Everything is closed, so we are spending more time at home, and we are not traveling. The hotels are closed, but this will not remain forever. And there are many people, they are dreaming to travel, to use the cars, to visit the friends, the families, or to go for the holidays abroad. And this decrease of the claims we had in the nearest past, this will not remain. In my opinion, after we achieve the certain level of the vaccinated people, and more facilities will be open, and that will be more and more accidents again. And when we take in account that the expectations of the victims are higher and higher, in the reality, I would not expect that we will save a lot of money, at least on the level of the paid and reserved claims. So we must looking for another options to save the money or generate the profits. So what is the lesson from this comparison between the trends and facts? The first one is that the 12 months crisis, it's only 12 months. It's too short period to predict anything. And especially that we really don't know how long these problems will last, how long we will be closed, and how long that we can expect the level of the claims will be lower. Who knows? But additionally, we are living in a bit unpredictable surrounding. We don't know what will be the financial consequences, the economic consequences of this of this pandemic for the economy of particular countries. This will have a real impact on our personal life, but also the life of the insurance industry. At this moment, in many countries, we have strict economical policies, but the governments are pumping a lot of money in the different sector of the economy, and this will have for sure the negative consequences in the next 2, 3, 5 years. And also, what is very important, this is the reaction of the people. This is also unpredictable. We really don't know if this pandemic will have any long-lasting influence on the behavior of the people. The second group, it's related to the previous deliberation. Less accidents, not at all. We shouldn't expect it. Better driving culture, maybe in 5 years. But why it should be changed in so short time? I'm realistic. I'm working more than 40 years in this business. And such predictions were formulated many times after certain moments of the changes, and never we achieved the goal. Of course, we are driving better and better. We are closer and closer to the EU policy to decrease the number of the fatalities and injured claimants, but it's a long way in front of us. And unfortunately, we shouldn't expect lower costs. We see that the inflation is now starting in many countries, so it means we will pay more and more. I'm rather skeptical in this area. I shouldn't expect that we will save any euro in this area. And back to my previous statement, it's really too early to formulate any trends in the near future. This 12 months is too short period to do it. So thank you very much for your kind attention, and I see on my watch is exactly 20 minutes I have received from Daniela. Thank you very much.
Thank you also, Mariusz. You are very precise. First of all, because you have mentioned your long career in motor insurance, I would take a few seconds to tell you all that next week you will have the opportunity to watch on YouTube a very interesting interview with Mariusz under the new program that we are developing, which is called Story Lab, and which is really putting together professional stories and personal stories, thus the career discussion, in a way that I hope it is nice and pleasant for you all. Closing this parenthesis, I would like to ask Mariusz just one question, because after that we will also hear from Madalin, ROSU, and maybe we can discuss a little bit, all three of us, after that. But one thing related to the Poland market, motor insurance market especially. Poland is one of the countries in the region with a very high percentage of very old cars, over 20 years of age. Yeah, it's quite strange in a manner of speaking. And these years, because of the economic situation, of the lockdown, of the crisis, etc., the registration of new cars has significantly decreased everywhere, including in Poland. So that, in fact, the average fleet age is increasing, not improving. Is that a problem for insurers? Do they need to have a special approach towards this situation? Because I assume it will last some time.
Yeah, yes and no. Yes and no.
Oh.
This is a very interesting aspect of this pandemic. It's true that, Daniela, that we have really very big share of the old registered cars in our country. And this has an impact on the insurance industry, partly because of this, that, of course, the technical quality of these cars is, let's say, not very high. So we could include this as an additional risk in the MTPL. But when we look on this phenomenon from other side, this has also the negative impact on the industry, because almost everybody knows that the best client in motor business is the client who is insuring both the hull insurance, called Casco, and MTPL. Unfortunately, the old cars are insured only against MTPL, and of course the clients are looking only for the cheapest offer. As long the market is not in a dumping position like our market at this moment, this is not so dangerous. When we can observe the figures in the last 3 years, we see the positive development in this area. The insurers are trying to keep the real prices for this kind of the product. But from the other side, the pandemic had also the positive impact in this area, because due to the restrictions in different countries, restrictions regarding the transport movement, the number of the cars they were imported from second-hand cars decreased rapidly. So this is the positive, one of the positive aspects. The second one, if you would ask the dealers of the new cars, they reported in the last 5 months, they are rather successful. And this was a big surprise that so many people were interested to buy a new car. Of course, this is not so big that we will cover this big number of the registered cars we have now, but generally this is the positive trend. Unfortunately, the governmental policy in this area is, let's say, very, very strange, and we as representatives of the insurance industry, we are really not. We are rather surprised that they are not willing to change this policy and do something to decrease the possibility to register the cars. They are 20 years old and they are after 2-3 accidents. This is regarding your question, Daniela.
Thank you very much. Well, it's good to hear that in every bad there is also something good, at least in part, in some aspects. We will maybe comment a little bit later. Thank you, Mariusz. Now I will invite you all to hear from Madalin ROSU, President of the Romanian Bureau of Motor Insurers. I don't know if Madalin will be able to enter with his camera. I think he had some problems, but well, we will try to help with a picture at least, if nothing else.
Well, hello to everybody. Anyway,
welcome, Madalin.
Thank you. Unfortunately, it seems that technology sometimes it's failing, as we saw also latest news with full, how should I say, autonomous driving in United States, if you remember the article. So sometimes we have to register also ourselves some breakdowns, I would say. Yeah. But I think this is not an issue. It's strange to look to my picture, but anyway, coming back to the topic, I was very keen to listen to the presentations on telematics. Anyway, I'm saluting one more time also Mariusz. Very inspiring presentation, I would say. And indeed, okay, pandemic, it is a fact, but we have to learn from it. Yeah, I think that what we can observe now, it's a different trend on the customers, and we really need to adapt very fast in order to offer to the clients in the near future what they want. Yeah, I think that this year, actually year and something, showed us that being somehow restricted from the perspective of transport or okay, staying more home and so on, everybody get more connected to the technology, and this is a good thing, I would say, because we can combine our products with the technology in the future. If somebody will ask me, I will not bet 100% on artificial intelligence. Honestly, me personally, I prefer real intelligence combined with some artificial intelligence in order to support and help. But in the end, I think we will face a mix of these two topics. On the other hand, in terms of telematics, one more time, I was really, really impressed, and congratulations to the colleagues who presented. This is also the reason that I put the question. I think that we need to learn how to adapt ourselves to the clients and to offer to them some telematic solution on the mobile apps or something like this. Why? Because the people just get more and more dependent on their phones, and honestly, their phones are more, how should I say, smart than we can imagine, and they get smarter and smarter from a day to another. And I think that we can use together with our clients for sure this kind of arguments. On the other side, what is also, how should I say, important is to understand the social movements and the behavior which is in this moment changing. Yeah, we are learning together with our colleagues and employees that in the future this hybrid way of working, yeah, from home or from maybe a terrace in the future or some park or whatever, and the office, I think it will be something that we will get used with, and also the clients, because in the end the clients, yeah, we are also the clients, so we have to understand this new behavior, and we have to offer as much technology in the hands of the clients, and they need to choose it in a simple way. In terms of what Mariusz mentioned earlier, indeed, we were facing a little bit dropping down on the frequency on foreign cases, but it will not last because even during the lockdowns, the trucks, the transporters were still traveling, because this is in the end their business, and we need it at that moment. So anyway, what we will expect very soon after this vaccination will end, indeed, it's an increase of the frequency. So what should I say? What should I say next? I will comment a little bit, but very shortly, about the Romanian situation, because maybe some of the colleagues are aware that there are some projects in terms of legislation currently, and one of them it's in the direct settlement area. So we are waiting, nothing yet on the table. There are some projects running, so we are waiting to see what it will be the final version. This will have an impact in the insurance on the MTPL business line, but we have to learn and to adapt, as I mentioned from the beginning. So I think that the time is somehow running.
We still have a couple of minutes. No problem.
Yeah, it's a little bit strange to talk with a screen, and this is it. So we have to learn more time.
It's a new reality.
Yeah, in terms of coming back to this, I will comment a little bit what also Mariusz mentioned about the cost and the increasing and inflating cost on the repair and the average claim. What we can observe, and it will dramatically change in a totally different way that we knew until now, is this mix of hybrid cars and full electric cars. And I think we are not yet prepared with a correct tariff estimation and how should I say, a correct claim cost estimation. Because as probably many of us in this virtual room knows, when electric car it's a little bit more crashed, so not a severe one, but also not a small claim, the value it's skyrocketing. And this is one of the reasons it's they are changing from regular cars to computers on wheels, and this is having an impact. So if we will have a claim to the software, honestly, I don't know how to assess it. So probably our motor engineers in the future need to be also IT engineers and so on. So let's see how the things are developing in the future. See, I have a question.
Madalin, yes. Ella, which is the question for Madalin?
So question for, it's although the claims in Europe are at the lower level in 2020, Romania, the situation is not similar.
Madalin just read the question, so you can also answer.
He stole the stage for you.
Yeah. This is how should I say, the good thing when you do not have all the equipment running correctly. But anyway, well, actually in Romania we were facing also a small decrease into the frequency in the period of lockdown last year, and then slightly grew. The only thing what we observed last year is that even the frequency went down locally, the severity of the claims raised up. And this was one of the main reasons, I would say. It was the speed that it was registered, and honestly, I was witnessing day by day on the roads. Roads were empty, and the people were how should I say, more willing to speed. Yeah, and of course the accidents were more severe, and also bodily injuries involved and so on. So the trend was also in Romania in terms of the frequency, but starting with I would say in the end of actually Q3 and Q4 started to raise up, and now basically is like not even existing any pandemic, and the traffic it's really strong, and frequency went back.
Well, I assume that it will increase further because still the situation is not very friendly with traveling in between different towns or places, but the trucks are clearly on the streets. They are big, heavy pieces of machinery.
Big fleet from Romania traveling across Europe. Anyway,
yes,
what is also, I don't know if Susan was referring also to the volume of claims paid or reserves, and this is another story, because we are facing, due to the lack of the, how should I say, very clear legislation, it allows that locally many garages charging really skyrockets in terms of claim cost. Yeah. And based on many analyses that we were running at the UNSAR level, at BAAR level, we were showing that an independent body shop, an independent garage can charge even 3-4 times higher cost than an authorized dealer, and this is really impacting overall claim paid or claim even claims reserves. Yeah, if you depends on which parameter you are asking. Yeah.
Yes, well, I hope our guest had received the answer was hoping. In fact, she says, thank you very much, Madalin. Very interesting content so far. That being said, if there are no other questions, Mihaela, do you have something?
We are heading for the break.
Oh, then I will let you to give our guests the good news, and then we will come back later with other very interesting presentations on new mobility preferences, the issues they are raising, the way our markets are adapting.
As Daniela announced, after this very interesting content, full of information, we are heading for a well-deserved 5-minute break. You can grab a coffee and join a cigarette.
Hello, everyone. I hope you had the opportunity to grab a coffee and to prepare for our last hour of discussions. This section will be dedicated to something new in the mobility landscape, namely the new mobility preferences of the public. We have seen more and more lately on the streets, I don't know, e-bikes, electrical vehicles of all sorts, a lot of car sharing solutions in place. So people are changing, and especially the new generations. And of course, insurers have to adapt to these changes. And we will start with Liviu HULUTA, Head of Consumer and Commercial for Central Southeastern Europe at Marsh. And he will present us a global phenomenon, namely the enhancing mobility through the use of embedded insurance. Liviu, the floor is yours, please.
Hi, everyone. So let me share my slides. I'll do that right now. So the quote of the year, can you see my slides?
Yes.
All right.
Yes.
All right. So the point I'm going to be making today is around how mobility has changed the risk landscape. It has been touched upon by my predecessors from Swiss Re and Marijan as well, who I've met a few times already. So you all know the traditional models of mobility for cars, car leasings, as well as mass transit. There's micromobility, there's ride hailing, which we all know today. Car sharing is a thing that's already very popular, but also car subscriptions, which I'm going to be talking a little bit more today than usual. If we look at the ecosystem, there's various actors in it, like regulators, the OEMs, whether they're autonomous manufacturers or not. The cities play a role in the advancement of mobility. That there's the manufacturing of the components. There's the cyber security aspect of it. Of course, there's the overall service. So what enables these this ecosystem are, the autonomous vehicles, the electric vehicles that are growing in share, and the on-demand and connected type of interaction between companies, the companies and the consumers. So there's various types of mobility. I have an interesting, I hope, graph on it. So this is US-based data that shows us how many trips there are per miles. So let's try to divide them into categories. So there's a very big category where the general trip is 1-2 miles. There's another category that fits into the 3-4 miles. There's yet another that spends a little bit more, and a big category with maybe a longer commute. For each of this quintile, you need a different type of vehicle. So let's see what happened in the world. So for the first 1 or 2, you have companies like Lime or Bird. So for 1 mile, 2 miles, a scooter has proven already that's very efficient in the world. Then for the next quintile, you'll have Uber or Lyft, which is I'm sure most of you know is a Uber competitor in the US only currently. So the markets have addressed the first 2 quintiles in a service manner. So there's no real ownership in the scooters. Few people own scooters in the US, and it's proven a less and less likely scenario. So it's becoming a service. The taxi always was a service, and Uber and Lyft are no different. So then we look at what's happening in Europe. Maybe this is a very American type of assessment, but if you look in Europe, you have the same sort of dynamism on the market. You have ride sharing, car sharing of multiple types, short-term car rental, car subscription, which is as a at least from how we see it, it's a very dynamic part of the market. And then there's the sale and leasing, which has boomed during the pandemic because the sale and the leasing of automobiles was really offline. It was linked to brick and mortar, and that has taken a very online route. But what's the connection with insurance? If you look at the customer journey of a customer that wants to go and use such a service, there's the planning, there's the purchase, then there's the before journey where you see the sort of trip that you're going to make, and then the actual journey, and then the post-processing when they send you the bill. It has proven to be, and we've done this ourselves at Marsh a few times, we want to embed insurance there. We want to sell insurance there, but maybe some of the participants know that the regulation and the steps you need to take in order to sell a policy add a lot of friction to this journey. So it hasn't been a very successful thing to be able to sneak in an insurance coverage into this journey. So let me try to get to the next slide. All right. So what's going to happen next? We need to look at the next generations. So is owning a car still cool? Not really. As you see, as we go through the ages, people still need the transport, need the service, but less and less of us feel that having a car, owning a car is really necessary. Maybe it's only a little bit of a hassle sometimes. I've recently sold an old car, and it has been a hassle with all the paperwork and things like that. And if you think about people wanting to live in nice, cool parts of the city, those tend to have a very high rent, but also the parking is very expensive. So why bother with it? So there's a clear push in how we do things, in how we work towards not owning things, but actually going for the service. And insurance should benefit from this because insurance is a service. Ultimately, a lot of people say, that this type of sharing and this sort of thing is very American. It's not really European. We like our cars, we like our German cars, and so on. Well, let's take a look at the German market. Colleagues at Oliver Wyman. Oliver Wyman is a company part of Marsh McLennan, made a very nice study about perception around having a car as a subscription. You see the US 14% would like to have cars as a subscription, while Germans 26%. So it appears Americans like American cars more than Germans like German cars. And everybody knows German cars are better than American cars. Hopefully nobody from the US is on the call to feel upset about this. But ultimately, a lot of people are prone to this type of mobility. So if you think back at the slide with the quintiles, so Lime and the scooters served the first quintile, and then Uber served the second, and now we're moving on to the third quintile, which is more of a car as a service type of proposition. So then if we, sorry, the other way around. This is a slide I stole from one of the subscription companies that talked to us recently. So there is a lot of potential for growth in how people own cars or own less cars, because 75% of the car park, and this is German data, is individual. So this is where the big market is. This is where the disruption will happen. And then we're thinking, this is a very nice quote that I wanted to put here. What are the mobility companies doing in terms of insurance? And there was this big talk about Uber and Lyft having their own captive insurance companies. Some of them work with Marsh. You all know Tesla. Elon Musk famously said that they're building a big insurance company. For the time being, they have a captive. They've recently registered one in Europe, in Malta, with the aim of creating insurance products. Though if you ask them, and most of these companies build their captives with us at Marsh, so we've been lucky to have these conversations with them, they don't really want to do insurance. It's just that they're forced to. They want the right type of service, the right type of data to be collected and analyzed in a certain manner to truly understand the risk that their customers generate. So unfortunately, you know, the insurance industry, and we have to take it on the chin, has forced these companies to go into insurance rather than convince them to work with us. Curtis Scott was at Uber in 2018. Now is at Lyft, which is a famous Marsh client, and you know, he doesn't want to become an insurer, though this is where they are. And let's see how this type of activity performed. So risk retention tripled since 2018. Uber retains over $3 billion in their Hawaii captive. Lyft retains over $1 billion. We'll soon see the 2020 results, but I can, you know, unofficially tell you that it continues under the same path of these companies needing to retain more risk in terms of where they're positioned, both in terms of liabilities towards their customers, but also other type of property. So this is my final slide to unite, you know, this dichotomy between what the market is expecting and what the insurance market is providing. So if we it transpires in conversations I have with sharing economy or mobility companies, is that they start off with the expectation that insurance companies are very good at managing data and capturing it, but they end up feeling that we're not agile enough. And somebody at Bolt told me something that will stick with me for years. He said, you know, you look at data like it's gold. In your industry, you look at data like it's gold, but that's actually apples. If you don't use it now, it rots. You know, you lose that data. It doesn't stay there with you. It's not relevant long term. There's a dynamism in this industry that makes the data, you know, irrelevant after a very short amount of time. Then there's regulation. I think generally the insurance industry, and this is maybe a personal thing in me being a broker and dealing with the industry, is that there is an expectation from a lot of companies that regulation will keep up or advance as fast as these companies will. Personally, I think it's impossible, but we have companies like Amodo out there that, you know, bring a lot of technology and a lot of expertise in doing these things with Internet of Things as a whole. I mean, then, as I mentioned, and this is a core belief and a strategic imperative for us at Marsh McLennan, all of the divisions, we believe in everything as a service. We believe that all of the companies will have to develop a service in order to become relevant. So ownership as we knew it is no longer desirable. Then, of course, the changing nature of work and the impact of COVID, and here we mean long term. So as an overarching type of conclusion is that us as an industry, we need to be a little bit more agile if we are to still be relevant in how the risk is calculated and how it is perceived, as we are really not at the same pace as these companies are. And long term, this might be an issue for us. I hope that made sense.
Well, for sure it makes sense. Well, thank you very much, Liviu. Of course, we will have another presentation, and after that, we will come back with a panel of discussions. And again, I am encouraging our guests to send questions for you. Until then, still, I will have a question deriving from your presentation. You said I had a slide on the volume of risk that companies as Uber or Lyft are retaining throughout their captives. What do you think it's more about covering material damages or of their fleets, or most about third-party liabilities, given the fact that the actual user of the car is not the owner, so maybe it's less interested to protect it.
It's a lot of things. So liabilities are very important. These are US-based companies, and I'm sure all of you know the liability space is very different in the US. But there's also material damage. But the fastest growing part of that risk is actually insuring the drivers themselves, the partners as they call them, against accidents and things like that. So there is an anticipation that regulation will force them to behave more like an employer and offer accidents insurance, health insurance, and so on. And you all know that Amazon has started their own insurance company, and the first thing they did was health for their employees. So this is a normal first step, because while the regulation will push Uber to behave like an employer, they will also need to address the fact that they are not really an employee. They're not your average employee, desk sitting, coming in, doing a 9-to-5 job. It's a very dynamic thing that they might work for 1 hour a week or 100 hours a week. So that's sort of how the risk is retained. I hope that answers your question.
Yes, thank you. Well, in fact, I see on all channels that there are arriving lots of questions, but we will keep them a little longer, just as long as we will hear the next presentation coming from Lukasz KULISIEWICZ from the Polish Chamber of Insurance. He is an expert on motor insurance, and he will tell us how the pandemic is affecting e-mobility development, of course, focusing on the Polish market. So after that, combining your global perspective with his Polish point of view, we can answer all the questions at once. Lukasz, the floor is yours. Please.
Hello, everybody. Welcome. Of course, I will say a few words on the pandemic situation as well, but at the beginning, I'd like to share some information on e-mobility as a whole. So I will share my screen and my slides with you. Is it it's visible now?
Yes, yeah? Yes.
Okay, great. So first of all, my main points, which are regulations, limitations, and accidents. First of all, I have here the 4 possible regulatory levels. Because in many countries, the issue of immobility, I mean, especially this small electronic or electric mobility devices, is not regulated. So maybe except Great Britain, where it is strictly forbidden to use it in public spaces. so everyone can use the e-device in own garden, but not in public roads or pavements or whatever. So there are 4 possibility regulatory levels. One is the EU level, which probably will not be taken into account because for now there's no work on that kind of regulation. Then the second type is the member state. So each member state or each European country can make the regulations on its own level. And this is an example which is actually happening in Poland now. And I will tell about it a bit later. The third level is the city. So like the Spain example, Barcelona, that every city can theoretically make its own regulation, how to use the e-mobility, how to use these e-scooters and other devices, where to use it, who can ride on it, and so on. And this happened in Spain, as I mentioned. And the fourth possible level is the rental companies. And this is the most popular, I guess, situation now, because we have many rental companies, and of course each company has its own regulation, which are like conditions of usage. Yes, so every user who wants to register in the system of the rental company has to approve the regulations they offer, and the user must keep these regulations and has to keep it while riding. So this is most popular situation now, that kind of regulations. However, it is not affecting in general. It is not affecting the publicity, let's say. Concerning the limitations of a bit of the development as well, of course, of the e-mobility, is the lack of infrastructure. So if you see the city centers, it's easy to discover that not everywhere it is possible to use the e-mobility devices. Due to the curbs, due to the narrow pavements, and some many other infrastructures obstacles. There is no technical inspections of these e-mobility devices, so practically no one is paying attention to the technical state of these devices. So it doesn't matter if it has lights, no lights, it is okay, or it is maybe a bit broken. So no one except the user or the owner no one take care about this the technical state of this device. No legal regulations, with these small exceptions that I mentioned before, like Spain case or the Great Britain. And from the insurance perspective, there are no insurance solutions designed for this e-mobility, because there's no special products developed for the new mobility. In practice, the only product that can be used, for example, in Poland, is the personal liability insurance, which covers all the damages that can be made while using this e-mobility device. And the last thing from my main points is the subject of the accidents. So we've made a survey and it occurred that per 1 million rides, not users but rides, there were 50 serious accidents. Serious accident, it means that the hospital was involved, and the user or another person had to be taken to the hospital, and due to the fact that it's up to everyone to think if the 50 accidents per 1 million rides is a lot or it's not a lot. However, due to the fact that this serious accident means that the rider or another person goes to the hospital, then there is a question of insurance as well, because as I said previously, there is no obligatory insurance, so everyone has to think about own insurance to be protected somehow. Let's go to the next slide, which is the new mobility trends. And in our survey, we found out that in the next 30 years, over 6.5 billion people will be living in cities, which is a kind of trend, and it is strictly connected with the e-mobility as well, and new mobility as a whole. In my opinion, it affects the situation that more people in the cities, then it's the traffics, and the traffic is harder, and there are new ideas that cars should be moved out from the city centers. So this new mobility devices like these e-scooters and e-bikes and so on will develop for sure. Connecting different ways of transport. This is interesting point as well, because almost 40% of people who live in the cities, they use different kinds of transport while traveling within the city. So it means that if someone is traveling from home to the office, then uses, for example, 1 or 2 public transport vehicles, tram, metro, or a bus and metro, or tram and metro, and so on. So of course, now in this pandemic times, it is a bit different, and I will tell about it at the end. But still, this e-mobility, the e-devices are still on growth, in my opinion, due to the fact that you can reduce this number of vehicles that you have to use while traveling across the city, using, for example, your own e-scooter. Yes. Shared economy. People are more and more convinced to use not own devices, and the ownership of the device is not required more often than a few years ago. So if I need to use the e-scooter, I can just go outside my building, and I will probably find it on the next crossing. So I don't need to buy it, because I can be registered user of the company, and then I can just use the e-scooter, and then I can leave it somewhere, and I don't have to charge it, or to store it or whatever. Technology development. The biggest problem for all this e-mobility now is the battery efficiency. So we are still waiting for new technologies that can make the batteries more efficient. And of course, you probably can observe it in your own countries as well. There is a boom on electric cars. So even the prices are are relatively high of these electric cars. So if you see the statistics, the number of bought or registered electric cars are growing and growing each month. So this is for sure a trend, and we can expect that in the next few years the electric cars will be much more popular than today. And of course, the ecological part of our environment. All these e-scooters are electric, so there is no gasoline engines, as well as the electric cars and so on. So of course it is good for the cities, for the environment, and for us. Of course, we have to keep in mind how do we produce the electricity in our country. So it's not maybe always very eco. However, reducing the number of cars in the cities, it is much more eco than uses all diesels, for example. Concerning the insurance issues, so as I said at the beginning, practically now only the personal liability of the user is the one product that can cover risks which can happen while using this new e-mobilities devices like e-scooters or e-bikes. There is no obligatory MTPL for e-bikes or for e-scooters or any other devices on the Polish market. Of course, it is not also obligatory for the rental companies. So it's absolutely up to the user to be insured or not, or to take the risk or your own. So there is no any force there is no any force or obligation to get the insurance. So it's absolutely up to the person who is using this kind of devices. And some information from just I don't know, maybe 2 weeks ago, because our parliament made a new regulation on scooters. We were waiting for that. I think that about 1.5 years, or even maybe a bit more. And now it will be possible to use the e-scooter on the bike path with the maximum speed of 20 kilometers per hour. Of course, you can use the road lane as well when speed limit is set up to 30 kilometers and there is no bike path aside. So when it is the city limit 50 kilometers per hour, then it is not allowed to use the e-scooter. But in this areas when there is a limit, the speed is limited to 30 kilometers, then it is possible to drive just on the road. And on the pavement, the e-scooter user cannot exceed the speed of the pedestrian, which is quite not obvious. However, you have to ride at the maximum speed of the pedestrian. So there is no racing pedestrians anymore on the pavement, because it was really dangerous, and mostly all these accidents happened in that kind of situation. Of course, users above the 18 years old, they do not need any requirements. And the users which are between 10 and 18, they need a proper driving permission, which is quite similar to that one for bikes for children between 10 and 18. And children up to 10 years old only in this residence zone, so in close to the buildings, and only under the adult supervision. So it's not possible that a 10 years old child will take this e-scooter and drive just across the city. Of course, it's not allowed to use the e-scooters after alcohol or drugs, and or using the e-scooter with another person, animal, or a luggage. So of course the luggage is not defined, unfortunately, so we have no idea if the backpack is a kind of luggage, or a luggage is something that you can put just on the e-scooter, and you have, for example, to hold it with one hand and to drive the scooter with the other. So we think that, of course, the backpack is possible, but the bigger luggage, which must be holded, however, on the scooter, is not allowed. And the last thing is because we had a lot of problems with the parking of e-scooters. It means that they were left everywhere, in every position, in every place. So now it is said that you have to leave the e-scooter on the pavement, but it can be parked only along the edge of the pavement. So you cannot leave it just wherever and in every direction. So it must be parked along the edge of the pavement. Only a few comments on the electric cars. Of course, it is a growing market, and every statistics that you can observe in Europe shows that there is more and more electric cars. As I mentioned already, the prices are relatively high. They are much more expensive than fuel powered cars. Of course, there is an insufficient charging facilities. It means that there is no infrastructure for charging electric vehicles. It's what I can describe on the Polish basis, because it's really pure infrastructure, and we cannot. It is not easy to find the charging station. And when you want to travel between the cities, for example, there are some fast chargers on the way, on the gas stations, but they are unfortunately very, very expensive. So you have to pay like 40 euros for 100 kilometers. So it makes senseless to use the electric cars when you travel from one city to the other, because it goes much more expensive than the diesel or even petrol engine. And concerning the pandemic, because that was the main issue, however, I thought it's important to share with you the information on these regulations and these issues on using the e-mobility. First of all, people are afraid of the public transport. On the basis of Warsaw Public Transport Company, we know that there is 40% less of people that use the public transport system, which is of course a huge problem, especially the financial problem for this public transport. But people prefer to use any kind of individual vehicles. So it's also it's easy to observe the situation on the used cars market. It's harder than last year or the 2 years ago to buy a good used car. So people are looking for other ways of moving. So by own car or by bikes or e-bikes or e-scooters. Last mile, which is as a second point, the last mile, which is the point called as I said at the beginning, that that people are using more than one vehicle, more than one transport device to move from the one part of the city to the other. Last mile is not last mile anymore. So people use these, for example, e-scooters for a much longer time, much longer distance than before. And the third point, which is quite interesting, that electric scooters became more and more popular in the suburbs. 2 years ago or 3 years ago when it started, then we could observe the e-scooters or e-bikes practically only in the city centers. And now if you go to the suburbs, to this residence zone where people are practically sleeping, then you can easily find the e-scooter on each crossing practically. So it is not only the way of transporting in the strict city center, but it is also very popular outside the city center. So and people drive more kilometers and much longer distances on it than before. So concerning my presentation, that's all I wanted to share with you. And if there are any questions, then Daniela will handle.
For sure, there are a lot. Thank you very much,
Lukasz. Thank you very much.
In fact, before going to the questions that we have received from our guests, I was looking while you were presenting the last slides, I was looking at Liviu, and he was approving the trend on the trends. Obviously, he has seen similar things where he lives and in his experience. And that being said, I would ask you semi-rhetorical questions. We have talked repeatedly about the pandemics acting like a catalyst for digitalization in insurance industry. Would you say it was also a catalyst for developing these new mobility trends? I, for one, if I'm thinking to Uber, I think the only step that I should take would be to become some kind of subscriber, because I'm using it all the time just to avoid buses or metro or other means of transportation. Can we say that it was a boost in this direction because of the pandemics? In your view?
I definitely think so, yeah. And this is where I was heavily approving Lukasz, because you know, a lot of people are staying away from public transport. A lot of investments were made. If we're thinking Warsaw, you know, heavily developing their metro infrastructure. You know, indeed, there's a huge market there that has only grown. My colleagues at Oliver Wyman actually keep a track of 30 cities in terms of their development in this type of mobility, in sharing economy mobility, and Warsaw is one of them. And what's pushing the market is the attractiveness of the city as a market, because a lot of people are going in and using it more and more and more and more and more. And it's a very dynamic city. So I think the pandemic only spurred this along, to the misfortune of public transport, which has also received plenty of funding there.
Lukasz, you have mentioned the lack of regulation, which is not specifically Polish, but regarding the e-bikes and the scooters and all this type of means of transportation. Do you think that they have reached a volume of use, a number of units in use, that this lack of regulation might become a problem, a real problem?
In my opinion, it may affect the situation, because I mean, for the last 50 years, people were using bikes, and for the last 2, 3, 5 years, they are using bikes, they are using scooters, they are using e-bikes, e-scooters, and so on. For example, e-bike or e-scooter is it can be, you know, twice more heavy than ordinary bike, and it can make much bigger damage to a person or to a vehicle or to anything than the ordinary bike. So in my opinion, the regulation on this new mobility devices is absolutely needed. And people were afraid of these e-scooters while walking on the pavements in the cities. So it must be regulated where the users where and how the users can use these kind of devices.
And who's liable for the damages they are producing, they are causing eventually. That being said, I will ask Mihaela. She already has a list of questions for you.
Yes, there are some questions for this topic. First of all, for Liviu, what should do a traditional insurance company facing competition of new model companies like Tesla Captive that you mentioned earlier?
Well, my point was that Tesla specifically really wanted to work with insurance companies to cover some of the risks and figure out new risk models. And with the help of Marsh, actually went to numerous insurance companies to try and, ultimately experiment with a new way of doing things. And they were faced with a series of no's. So none of these companies really wanted to go into insurance. They all wanted to be focused on what they were doing, to being technology companies. So my answer to this is try new stuff. Try to reinvent a product. Try to look at a risk differently. Yes, it is risky, but the outcome might be that you end up with a new product, with a new way of pricing your products. Insurers need to experiment a little bit. Otherwise, these companies will have to do it on their own.
Okay, thank you. Another question, maybe you can both try to answer this one. Does Europe have protection against those big mobility players? Tesla is announcing an entry this field, but we have some regulatory barriers. How do you comment this?
From my point of view, the regulation is there. They have to go through the ropes. As I said, Tesla is getting this is public information. They're getting a European license and matching all of the criteria. That there is regulation to protect the consumer. There is no regulation to protect other market participants. The only protection you could have is to be smarter, faster, more agile than such a company.
Lukasz, do you want to comment on this?
Concerning the Tesla, as I understand, you asked the Tesla as an insurer, yes?
Yes.
It's in that way. So I think that for the European market, it is not it is not a risk, I guess. So they can make the insurance business on the same rules like the other insurance companies. The market is really regulated, or sometimes it is even over-regulated. So I think it is not a risk more than the other insurance companies.
Fully agree. Fully agree.
Okay, another question. Do you regard the current changes in the insurance industry as actual disruptive or just digitizing existing processes? And if so, what would you say is truly a disruptive story?
It's a hard question. There is the vast majority are digitizing processes. They're making them more efficient. There is, but there are some things that happen out there. If you look at what the companies that are supported by the Lloyd's Lab, there's a lot of re-engineering of risk, or how you keep track of the risk on a blockchain, for example. I think maybe in terms of distribution, it is all digitizing processes, but in terms of how you look at the data and how you look at the risk, I think there are some interesting projects there. But any way you could make insurance a little bit more digital, closer to the customer, and you've had some nice companies offering this on your panel already. I think this is all relevant.
Okay, Lukasz, if you want to comment.
In my opinion, during the last year, during the pandemic, I think that we can easily observe the digitizing process is really developing, because practically now you can conclude the insurance contract, you can notify the damage, and you can realize all these insurance processes digitally practically. So I don't think it is disruptive. I think it is what we have to get used to in the nearest future.
Okay. Liviu, we have another question for you. Can you give us an example about an innovative model of motor product or an innovative distribution system implemented in Central and Eastern Europe by Marsh?
Well, on this, first I'd like to highlight that Marsh is an insurance broker. Thus, we're not a product-driven company. Yes, we've created some products, the mobile phone insurance and things like that. But generally, we're not a product-driven company. We're a client-centric organization. So generally, we focus on the client's needs and work with our partners, the insurers, for them to provide the right product for them. And some of the things we've done in the motor space is a suite of extended warranty focused on the automotive space, plus these big companies that are now developing in the EV space or autonomous, like Tesla, like Polestar, are our clients, and we work with them to look at the data a little bit differently, to set up these captive insurance companies with them. And I think these are relevant. I mean, Tesla is embedding the insurance we make for Marsh for their distribution across the CE, including Romania, Hungary, Poland, Slovenia, and so on. So I think all of these are relevant, but you'll never see a Marsh branded motor insurance product to be distributed widely, because this is not really our cup of tea, if you will.
Okay, thank you very much. So these are my questions. If you have anything else, Daniela?
Just to conclude, I will ask you to make your bets a little bit on the future trends, because we have, or you have talked about a lot of new things coming in the landscape, from e-cars, scooters, sharing cars, I don't know, lots of things. And it is obvious that the speed with which they are developing in each country depends on many factors, including regulation, including culture, including the type of mobility which is very much in use, the distances. It's not the same in the US or in the small countries of Europe. And considering all of these factors and your own feelings, let's say so, your own guess, what do you expect to see first in our region as becoming a powerful trend, a very visible trend that needs really attention from the insurance industry? What of these new things would you see affirming itself first in a powerful way?
I think that there is a common trend in Europe to reduce the number of cars in the cities. The cities, they make everything they can to make traffic more calm, and to reduce the number of cars in the cities. And it, of course, these people who are using the cars now, they have to find a kind of another utility, another device to move within the city. So in my opinion, due to the fact that that this kind of action is happening now, and we can even observe it in Warsaw. I think that this e-scooters or e-bike market will be will develop, and more people will use that kind of devices. And of course, the public transport is still in charge, but now this pandemic time is, like I said in my presentation, that people are afraid a bit, so they are looking for other kinds of transport utilities.
Something to add?
Yeah, this is a very, very true point with which I agree 100%. What I'll do is add on top of it, is I think, yes, a lot of people will give up ownership, myself included. I don't see the point of owning a car anymore. I haven't seen it for the past 2 years, I reckon. And what I think will be an effect of that is the movement towards car as a subscription or as a service. So if you need it just for 3 months, because then you sort of commute between, you know, the summer house, or you go on holidays or things like that, or use it a little bit more, and traffic is a different thing, or you just will use it in winter because you've got a lot more trips and you don't want to ride a scooter during the winter and things like that. That, I think, is going to be the way in which we use cars in the future. And I'll say that I have a dear friend that worked in Romania and now works with Mercedes on their mobility practice. And they're offering, as part of the package, to recruit young graduates from top schools. You know, Mercedes is worth 100,000 euros, and they don't want them anymore. You know, it's part of the employment package. And he said, you know, after working in Romania, he thinks it's impossible. But these people say, I want to live in the center of the city. You know, I'll just use it 2-3 months, 1 month in winter, 2 months in summer, and that's the end of it. And I can get a nice subscription service for it. So if you want my bet, that's going to be you know, my bet. And actually, there's 2 German or one half German, half British, and one German company. One is called Cluno, and one is called Drover, that provide the service. They recently been acquired, both of them, and they're going to have an IPO in London later on this year. So it's no longer a trend. There's billions going into this business already. And both of them, I might say, either bundle insurance, or like Drover is an insurance MGA already. So there's a big part of it. Unfortunately, there's no insurance company nor insurance broker that is an investor in these companies. So that's where I see the possibility of these type of companies eating our lunch.
If I can add something to that, from my point of view, it's important to underline that we are talking about it from the perspective of a big city. Which is a different story than if you take into account the villages and the cities, like, you know, 5, 10, 15,000 of inhabitants, because of course they don't have the sufficient infrastructure to use the public transport or to use this new mobility devices. And I think that in that case, the car will still be an important device, let's say, the transport device for that kind of people. People have to go to work for 20, 30, 50 kilometers, and outside the big city, it is not that easy to organize the transport for a lot of people. Yeah. So of course I can agree that from the perspective of the big cities, like capital cities of our countries, then it's absolutely, I can agree with Liviu, but when we talk about this, the other parts, I think it won't be that developed very, very soon. Yep.
Thank you very much to both of you, Liviu and Lukasz. Hope to see you again and to talk. I don't know if I'm thinking a little bit 10 years ago, it was saying here that said, and it was really true, that most men are loving their car more than their wife, and now the young generations are refusing top range cars to have in use.
They started loving their wives.
It's obvious. Yes, it's obviously
There's nothing wrong with that.
Things are.
That's a good trend. That's a good trend.
Yeah, yeah. As a woman, what can I say? Idea is that things are changing really, really fast. And probably in 10 years from now, we will see a completely different landscape with completely different accents. That's what can I say? We have called this conference a glimpse in the future of the motor insurance, and it actually was just that, a glimpse, because we can talk a lot more and a lot focus on much more many things, which enable us to invite you for further meetings. We will try to cover other aspects, at least as interesting as today. Till then, stay focused, follow us, look from time to time on extreme.com to see what is new, what is coming, what it's expecting you. You can see again parts of this conference if you want to study more on the Extreme YouTube channel, and I strongly invite you to subscribe to the channel so that you can see what will come next there. Also, all presentations will be on the conference website starting tomorrow. And that being said, I am thanking once again to the conference sponsor, to Euroins and 5+, and of course to all our guests for your patience, for your interest, for your questions, and we hope to see you soon again. Goodbye.
Thank you. Goodbye.
Goodbye. Thank you all.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye, thanks.